The Rambam in Halakha Dalet takes a bit of a detour in order to explain to us what happened that impressed Ezra and made him create a nusach, that is to say, Ezra and the men of the Great Assembly, the Anshe Knesset Agdolah. If it worked from Moshe Rabbeinu until Ezra, what happened at the time of Ezra that forced him to change everything and create the Shemoneh Esrei that we use till this very day? The position of the Rambam is very interesting, but demands an extensive discussion. What I will do here is only to summarize it and try to highlight what I think the significant point is. The Rambam says this: during the days of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel, the Jewish people were sent into exile, and they mixed with people who spoke other languages, Persians and Greeks, and then they had children in those lands of the exiles, and those children were not really able to speak clearly in any particular language. And since he was not able to speak in any particular language, they would speak with words from one language and another language, and it was a kind of a low-class effort. And then, as a result of that, when one of them would daven, when one of them would want to daven and stand before Kodesh Baruch Hu, I mean, if you assume that they wanted, here the Rambam doesn't say that, but let's assume that they wanted to daven in Hebrew, as their great-grandparents would daven in Eretz Yisrael. So that he would find that he really didn't have language or the words, the vocabulary, to go through the tefillah properly. He was not able to praise God. He wasn't able to ask exactly what he wanted in what we call Lashon HaKodesh, which is the Hebrew of the Bible, but he would be forced to add words and phrases from other languages that are not appropriate. And since Ezra and his court saw this, and I guess the Rambam doesn't say this again, but I guess they were fearful that people would stop doing this mitzvah, would stop davening, because they would be unable to communicate their wishes or their interests to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that, as a result, Ezra and his court, they stood up and they fixed the Shemoneh Esrei. And they said, this is it. Here are Shemoneh Esrei brachot, 18 blessings that will help you fulfill the obligation of tefillah, and we give them to you in the proper order. The first 3 brachot, Shevach, praise of God. The last 3 brachot, Hodayah, thanksgiving for things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us. And the middle brachot, which on a regular day, 12 in number, in the time of Ezra, are about the petitions that I might make to HaKadosh Baruch Hu about my personal interests. And then everybody could learn this Shemoneh Esrei and fulfill the mitzvah properly. And it was important that people would understand or feel that when they did the mitzvah of davening of tefillah, that they accomplished it, in fact. And they understood, apparently, to the Rambam, that the inability to speak your wish to God in the language that's called Lashon HaKodesh was an inhibiting factor. Now this, I say, even though the psak halacha is that you can daven in any language, nevertheless, this idea that you're unable to express yourself in a particular language was problematic as the Rambam saw it. The Rambam saw that on national level, it was inconceivable that no one would be able to daven properly. And so this idea that if there are people davening properly, a person can daven translation may be correct, but you still have people who are davening correctly, and that's an important distinction. So that the Rambam feels that it's important to describe the rise of the Shemoneh Esrei within its historical context. Before, we were able to daven on our own. Some people better, and some people just marginally davening in an acceptable way. Eventually, it became a problem on the national level. People were not any longer able to daven in Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew, and therefore Ezra and his court established the Tefillah, which we call Shemoneh Esrei, which is a formulation that has been given over to the entire Jewish people, accepted throughout the ages until our time today.